You've been lied to about who you are, and it started the moment you were born. They told you that you're just a body, a mind, a personality shaped by genetics and environment, that your worth lies in achievements, status, and how well you fit into a world designed by others. But the truth is far older, deeper, and more dangerous to those in control. You are a soul, eternal and infinite, temporarily clothed in flesh. And that soul, the real you, has been forgotten, buried beneath layers of distraction, disinformation, and spiritual amnesia. The story of the soul isn't some poetic metaphor or religious fantasy. It's the central mystery that ancient civilizations built their entire cosmologies around. But over time, this knowledge was stripped away, distorted, and repackaged into systems that made you forget your origin. And when you forget where you come from, it becomes easier to control where you're going. That's the real reason this truth was hidden, because a soul that remembers cannot be enslaved. Before you were born, before you had a name, a body, or even a single thought, you existed, not in some abstract, poetic sense, but as a conscious presence, vibrant and alive. You were not created at birth, nor were you a blank slate waiting to be written on by the world. You were and still are a spark of divine intelligence, limitless, eternal, and sovereign. But the moment your soul chose to incarnate into this physical realm, something was lost. Not your essence, but your memory. A veil was drawn. You forgot who you were, where you came from, and why you came at all. This forgetting wasn't a mistake. It's part of the design, an ancient agreement written into the very nature of incarnation. In esoteric traditions, from the Vedas to Gnostic scriptures, the soul is described not as something developed over time, but as something that descends from higher realms to experience density, polarity, and limitation for one reason: growth through experience. You weren't sent here to obey a system or chase material illusions. You chose to come here, to learn something only this realm could teach. But upon arrival, the soul enters a womb, a body, a family, a culture, and with each layer, the remembrance fades. By the time we can walk and speak, we've already forgotten we ever came from the stars. And yet, in that forgetting, something else awakens, a quiet longing. You've felt it before, that strange ache in your chest when you look at the sky, that quiet knowing that you were meant for something more, that sense that no matter how much you achieve or acquire, something is still missing. That's the soul whispering beneath the noise. It's not trying to make you feel lost. It's trying to help you remember. Remember that you didn't come here to become something. You came here to remember what you already are. Mainstream science doesn't talk about this. Most religions gloss over it. Culture distracts you from it. And that's not accidental, because if you truly knew the depth of what you are, if you realized that your consciousness didn't originate here and can never die, the systems built to keep you obedient would collapse. An awakened soul doesn't chase approval. It doesn't bow to fear. It doesn't need to be saved because it remembers it was never lost. That kind of inner power is dangerous to those who profit from your doubt. Some truths about the soul are too esoteric and too suppressed to fully explain here. Join our Free Insights Academy newsletter for deeper revelations. You'll get instant access to a digital copy of the Kybalion for a limited time, link in the description. Ancient texts like the Upanishads, the Pistis Sophia, and Hermetic writings speak in riddles, but the message is consistent. The soul is not of this earth. It is the observer, not the observed. It is the stillness behind your thoughts, the awareness behind your personality. And more importantly, it chose this life, not because it was weak, but because it was ready. You came here knowing this world would try to make you forget. You knew it would teach you fear, division, and limitation. But you also knew something they didn't, that the truth would never fully die. It would hide in symbols, stories, ancient texts, and the strange pull of your own intuition. And when the time was right, when the illusion grew too heavy, you'd begin to wake up. You'd start to question the noise. You'd follow the breadcrumbs. You'd remember. And that's where the real journey begins. Because once you begin to remember who you are, you'll start to see the invisible architecture that's been shaping your spiritual path all along. And you'll see that not all who guide souls are here to set them free. Most people believe that after death, the soul moves on, ascending into light, reviewing its life, preparing for another incarnation, or perhaps finally reaching peace. But what if that's not the full story? What if the cycle we've been told is sacred? Birth, death, rebirth is not a divine design, but a system, a loop, a trap, one that keeps your soul bound to a realm of suffering, limitation, and forgetfulness, lifetime after lifetime, while convincing you that this is how it's supposed to be. This idea isn't new. It's whispered through ancient mystery schools, echoed in Gnostic texts, and hinted at in modern near-death experiences. They speak of a light, a tunnel, a review, but also of manipulation, of being shown familiar faces to coax the soul forward, of being told you must go back, that your work isn't finished, that you haven't yet learned enough. But who decides that? Who's behind the review, and what happens if you say no? In the ancient Gnostic worldview, this realm we call Earth is not the highest plane of God, but a distortion, a counterfeit reality ruled by the archons, entities that feed off ignorance, fear, and compliance. They speak of a false light, a construct meant to imitate divine truth, luring the soul back into matter through guilt, attachment, and obligation. The soul, once radiant and sovereign, becomes a pawn in a game it doesn't remember entering. Some near-death experiencers return with stories that don't align with comforting religious narratives. They speak of being pressured to reincarnate, of feeling drained, watched, even tricked. They describe an overwhelming love, but also a sense of being overpowered, as if their free will was being bypassed by something far more persuasive than logic. And yet these voices are often silenced, dismissed, or labeled delusional. Because if these stories are true, they break everything we've been told about the soul's journey, and they raise a terrifying question. Are we really free? If there is a soul trap, it doesn't mean existence is hopeless. It means you've been living in a rigged system that wants you to stay asleep. Because an aware soul, one that remembers its divinity and resists the pull of false authority, is dangerous to that system. The trap isn't physical. It's psychological, energetic, karmic. It works through conditioning, teaching you that suffering is noble, that pain is a path to purification, that sacrifice earns you a higher place in the next life. But what if that belief is part of the trap? What if the very idea that you must learn lessons through pain was never yours to begin with? Look around. Most spiritual traditions speak of escaping the wheel of rebirth, not celebrating it. In Buddhism, the ultimate goal is to end samsara. In Hinduism, moksha is liberation from the cycle. The ancient Egyptians believed in ascending through the duat and avoiding judgment by false gods. Even Jesus, in the hidden Gospels, speaks of transcending this world and its rulers. It's only in modern spirituality, co-opted and diluted, that reincarnation is romanticized as if it's something we should be grateful for. But here's what they don't want you to realize. You don't owe this world anything. Your soul doesn't need to suffer to evolve. It already holds the blueprint of perfection. The pain, the struggle, the endless repetition. That's not enlightenment. That's entrapment. And it begs the question, who benefits from this cycle continuing? Who profits from souls staying lost, looping through lifetimes, never fully waking up? You're told it's all love and learning. But what if there's another agenda? One that thrives on your consent. Consent you never truly gave with full memory intact? You didn't come here to be stuck. You came to remember. And once you do, the cycle starts to fracture. The trap weakens. Because truth has a frequency that illusion can't hold. And when enough souls start to question, to resist, to choose differently, the system begins to collapse. Not through rebellion, but through remembrance. Not through escape, but through clarity. You're not here to be recycled. You're here to wake up. And when you truly know that, They can't hold you anymore. You've been taught to see reality in straight lines: birth, life, death, one timeline, one body, one world. But the soul doesn't move in straight lines. It spirals, expands, traverses realms far beyond the physical senses. The three-dimensional world is only the surface, a dense, slow, and often painful plane designed for immersion. But beyond this layer are countless dimensions, vibrating at frequencies your body can't perceive, but your soul instinctively remembers. That's why certain dreams feel more real than waking life. That's why moments of déjà vu leave you breathless. That's why you've sometimes felt like you were somewhere else entirely, because part of you was. In mystical traditions across cultures, the soul's journey doesn't end with death. It unfolds through realms. The Egyptians mapped it through the Duat. The Hindus speak of the Lokas, layered dimensions of consciousness. The Theosophists describe the astral, etheric, and causal bodies, each more refined than the last. In each of these systems, the physical world is only the starting point, not the destination. After death, the soul detaches from the body, but not all souls ascend. Some hover, confused, stuck between dimensions. Some enter the astral realm, a mirror world shaped by thought and emotion. It's not heaven, it's a waiting room. In the astral, you're surrounded by projections, fragments, other entities, both helpful and deceptive. If you still carry fear, guilt, or unresolved attachment, you may not see clearly. That's why awareness matters. That's why remembering before death is essential. Because how you die reflects how you've lived, not in morality, but in clarity. As the soul evolves, it moves upward, inward. The etheric body dissolves, giving way to the mental, then the causal. Each dimension is less bound by form, more governed by intention and frequency. And at the highest levels, individuality begins to dissolve into unity, not in the sense of losing yourself, but in becoming everything. Source consciousness, the place you came from, and the place you will return to, if you choose to. But returning to source isn't automatic. It's a conscious process. You must release the weights that hold you to the lower planes: ego, identity, fear, unfinished karmic cycles, and even the attachment to reincarnation itself. Every belief becomes a tether, every false narrative a gravity that pulls you back. That's why so many return after death, because they're still bound by the illusion of this world and the identities they wore. This multi-layered reality isn't a fantasy. It's the architecture of consciousness. Some have glimpsed it through near-death experiences, lucid dreams, deep meditation, or psychedelic journeys. They speak of places that shimmer with meaning, of beings made of sound and light, of timeless realms where thought and space collapse into presence. They don't come back the same, because once you experience even a sliver of these dimensions, you realize how limited this world really is. But the goal isn't to escape, it's to integrate, to bring that higher awareness back here, to live as a bridge between dimensions. That's what the awakened soul does, not float above life, but move through it with eyes that see beyond the surface. It doesn't mean pretending this world doesn't matter. It means seeing it for what it is: a classroom, a simulation, a beautifully designed challenge for remembering. And if you've ever felt like you didn't quite belong here, that's not depression or disconnection. It's homesickness. Your soul remembers places beyond this one. Realms where truth isn't taught, it's known. Where love isn't earned, it's the air you breathe. Where time doesn't exist, and separation is a myth. But those places aren't gone. They're just veiled. And you were never meant to forget them forever. You're not limited to this body, this timeline, this version of reality. You never were. You're a traveler between worlds. And the more you remember that, the more you'll feel the pull to rise, not in escape, but in expansion. Most people think life is random, that you're born into a family by chance, stumble into relationships, and face challenges with no rhyme or reason. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Before you even took your first breath, your soul had already mapped out a path. not a rigid script, but a blueprint marked with lessons, encounters, and forks in the road. You didn't come here without a purpose. You came with intention, with agreements, and with a spiritual curriculum tailored specifically for your evolution. These are what some call karmic contracts. They aren't punishments. They aren't debts in the way we understand debt in the physical world. They are soul-level agreements made between you and others, often with those you've incarnated with many times before. You've felt it, haven't you? That unexplainable pull towards certain people, that sense of familiarity with a stranger, that instant connection that defies logic. These are often echoes of agreements made beyond the veil, souls who promise to help each other grow, sometimes through love, sometimes through pain. Your family, no matter how nurturing or damaging, was not assigned to you at random. Your closest relationships, the ones that brought you to your knees or lifted you beyond your limits, those were likely chosen. Because it's not always the gentle lessons that awaken us. Sometimes it's the betrayal, the abandonment, the heartbreak that forces us to look inward and remember who we are. Pain is not the only teacher, but in this dimension, it's one of the most effective. But don't mistake this for fatalism. Free will still reigns. Contracts can be rewritten. Lessons can be postponed or deepened, depending on your choices. You are not trapped by your karma. You're invited by it. Each challenge holds a mirror. Each person who triggers you carries a message. And every time you react, shut down, or project, you're offered a chance to do it differently. That's what soul growth looks like. Not perfection, but awareness. And this awareness isn't about spiritual bypassing, about saying everything happens for a reason, and then avoiding the depth of emotion that life demands from you. It's about knowing that your pain has context, that your suffering isn't meaningless, that behind every wound is a doorway back to remembrance. You didn't come here to be numb. You came here to feel fully, to rise through experience, and to transform that pain into power. There are no accidental meetings. Every soul you encounter is either reflecting your light or mirroring your shadow. Some come to remind you of your strength, others to challenge your worth until you reclaim it. And the beautiful, difficult truth is this: the soul cares more about growth than comfort. That's why life stretches you, breaks you open, makes you question everything, so that you can evolve beyond the person you were taught to be. But karmic contracts aren't just about people. They also show up in patterns, cycles that repeat over and over until you finally stop reacting and start responding. Until you stop asking, "Why me?" and begin asking, "What is this showing me?" That shift in perspective is where the soul starts to reclaim authority. And if you've ever wondered why some people seem stuck in loops, always attracting the same relationships, the same losses, the same drama, it's not because they're cursed. It's because the contract hasn't been acknowledged. The lesson hasn't been integrated. The wound is still teaching. And the moment you become conscious of it, the pattern begins to dissolve. This life isn't random. It's not cruel. It's precise. Your soul knew what it was doing when it chose this path. And even though your human self may forget, deep down, the part of you that exists beyond time and space remembers. Every experience is a message. Every challenge is an initiation. And every moment of awareness is a step closer to liberation. Everything around you feels solid. The ground beneath your feet, the phone in your hand, the walls that shape your home. But what if none of it is as real as it seems? What if the physical world, the one we're told is the only reality, is just a projection, a dense layer of illusion your soul chose to enter for a very specific reason? The ancient mystics weren't just being poetic when they said the material world is Maya, an illusion. They were describing a truth that science is only beginning to glimpse, that matter, at its core, is energy vibrating at specific frequencies, that nothing is truly solid, and what we perceive as reality is filtered through the limits of our senses and the programming of our mind. The soul knows this, but the body forgets. From the moment you're born, you're immersed in this illusion, trained to see with physical eyes and ignore the subtle truths behind the veil. You're taught to value what you can touch, measure, and prove, and to dismiss what can't be seen as fantasy or delusion. And so you begin to identify with form, with your body, your name, your achievements, your possessions, your social status. You forget that all of it is temporary, impermanent, and ultimately meaningless to the eternal part of you that never dies. But the illusion doesn't stop with physical matter. It extends into ideas, money, success, time. These are human inventions, constructs created to maintain order, to assign value, to keep you moving along a path that feels linear and logical. But your soul isn't linear. It doesn't move by clocks or calendars. It moves by resonance, by intuition, by deeper truths that can't be measured but can always be felt. This world was never meant to be the end goal. It's a stage, a mirror, a beautifully complex simulation where souls come to experience contrast and make the invisible visible. And yet, somewhere along the way, the mirror became a trap. The game turned into a prison. You began to believe that what you see is all there is, and that happiness lies in mastering this illusion instead of seeing through it. That's not your fault. The system was built to keep you looking outward, to keep you so busy chasing things, titles, validation, survival, that you never pause long enough to question whether any of it is even real. But deep down, you felt it, the weight of pretending, the emptiness that follows even your biggest accomplishments, the strange sense that you're living in a dream that doesn't quite belong to you. That's your soul whispering, reminding you that the real world isn't the one you can touch. It's the one you carry within you, the silence between thoughts, the love that makes no sense, the dreams that feel more vivid than waking life, the moments when time seems to stop and something ancient within you stirs. Those are the cracks in the illusion, the openings. This isn't about rejecting the material world. It's about remembering that it's not the full picture, that there's more, always more, beneath the surface. When you stop seeing with your eyes and start feeling with your awareness, you begin to pierce the veil. You start to recognize the synchronicities, the symbols, the subtle nudges from the universe guiding you home. You stop reacting and start witnessing. And in that witnessing, the illusion begins to dissolve. The truth is, matter isn't the problem. Attachment to it is. When you begin to identify with what you can lose, you disconnect from what you truly are, unchangeable, eternal, and free. But when you remember that this body is a vehicle, this world a landscape, and these challenges a curriculum, you begin to walk differently. You stop clinging and start flowing. You stop chasing and start aligning. You didn't come here to get lost in the illusion. You came to wake up inside it, to remember the light while standing in the dark, to hold the awareness of eternity while playing this temporary role. And when you do that, you don't escape the world, you transcend it. You become lucid inside the dream, and that changes everything. There's a reason so many people around the world are feeling restless, disillusioned, and unfulfilled. A reason why old systems, religious, political, financial, are crumbling from the inside out. It's not chaos, it's not collapse, it's awakening. Humanity is in the middle of a shift, a turning point that ancient civilizations spoke about, encoded in prophecy and star maps and forgotten texts. And if you're alive right now reading this, it's not an accident. Your soul chose to be here for this exact moment, because something deep within you knew this would be the lifetime to remember who you are. This awakening isn't loud. It's not always visible from the outside. It's subtle, like a crack in the wall that lets the light bleed through. It's the sudden urge to question what you once accepted without hesitation. It's the discomfort you feel in places that once felt safe. It's the moments when your truth no longer fits inside your old life. That's awakening. It doesn't always look like a spiritual retreat or a grand vision. Sometimes it's a quiet rebellion, a refusal to keep pretending. As more souls begin to remember, the illusion weakens. The structures that were built on fear and division start to lose their grip. That's why it feels like everything is falling apart, because it is. But only so that something more truthful can take its place. You weren't meant to live your entire life asleep. You weren't designed to follow orders, play small, or blend in. You came here to awaken from the lie and help others do the same, simply by being what you are, a fully embodied soul. This isn't about becoming something new. It's about unbecoming everything you were told to be. It's about shedding the identities, the roles, the expectations that were placed on you before you even knew your own name. It's about seeing through the masks and remembering the face underneath, the part of you that existed before the programming, before the fear, before the forgetting. When you begin to live from that place, from soul, everything changes. You don't just react to life, you respond to it. You don't just survive, you create. You begin to hear your intuition more clearly. You start to see patterns and signs that were always there, guiding you. You feel a quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove anything, because you're no longer trying to be someone, you're simply being. But awakening isn't easy. It asks you to let go of certainty, to walk away from comfort, to question the beliefs that once defined your reality. It can be lonely. It can be terrifying. Because the old you has to die before the real you can be reborn. But in that space, in the unknown, you'll find something real, something that can't be shaken or taken. You'll find yourself. And when enough people do that, when enough souls remember who they are, the world begins to shift. Not from the top down, but from the inside out. Change doesn't start with systems. It starts with consciousness. And right now, that consciousness is rising. If you feel like you've been waiting for something, know this. The thing you're waiting for is already inside you. It's not coming. It's awakening. And the moment you stop seeking it out there and start turning inward, you'll realize you were never lost. You were just dreaming. And now it's time to wake up. In the age of awakening, not everything that glitters is gold, and not everything that looks like truth is liberation. As more people begin to question the illusion, a new trap has emerged. One that looks like freedom, sounds like wisdom, but quietly reinforces the very cage it claims to escape. It's the false path of enlightenment, the polished Instagram spirituality, the neatly packaged courses that promise instant ascension, the feel-good phrases that keep you numb instead of conscious. It's not designed to wake you up. It's designed to sedate you with better branding. Real awakening is raw. It's uncomfortable. It asks you to look at your shadow, not just your light. But the false path skips all that. It teaches you to bypass pain with positive affirmations, to suppress emotion in the name of high vibrations, and to stay passive under the banner of surrender. It teaches you that suffering is an illusion, but not how to actually process it. And in doing so, it reinforces the very programming you were trying to escape, just wrapped in softer words and prettier colors. This isn't a condemnation of growth or healing or spiritual exploration. But if your awakening doesn't make you question your ego, your identity, and your attachments, it might not be awakening at all. It might just be another mask. The ego doesn't die when you become spiritual. It evolves. It starts calling itself a light worker. It starts comparing frequencies. It starts wearing crystals and quoting Rumi while secretly craving validation. That's the trickiest part, when the ego disguises itself as the soul, when the desire to awaken becomes another performance. True awakening is not about pretending to be above it all. It's about being radically honest with yourself. It's feeling the grief, the anger, the despair, and still choosing to show up with love. It's questioning your beliefs, even the ones that once saved you. It's embracing the mess of your humanity while remembering your divinity. And most of all, it's not about being seen as enlightened. It's about becoming free. The commercialization of spirituality has made enlightenment a product. It's marketed through algorithms and trends, spiritual influences and curated aesthetics. But the soul doesn't care about how many followers you have. It cares about whether you're living in alignment with your truth, whether you're brave enough to walk your path when no one's watching, whether you can sit in silence without distraction and face what rises inside you. There's nothing wrong with tools, meditation, breathwork, energy healing. They can open doors. But the real work starts when the ceremony ends, when you go home, when the lights are off and the world is quiet and you're left with yourself. That's when you'll know if this path is real. Not because you felt high during a session, but because you became more present in your relationships, more compassionate with your triggers, more accountable with your energy. Don't let spirituality become your new cage. Don't trade one system of control for another just because it feels nicer. Awakening is not about escaping life. It's about engaging with it from a higher level of consciousness. It's not about floating above your problems, but walking through them with clarity and courage. The truth will not always feel good, but it will always set you free. If you find yourself judging others for not being awake, pause. That's not your soul speaking. That's the ego, disguised. The soul doesn't seek to separate. It seeks to unify. And the most awakened beings don't talk about how enlightened they are. They listen, they serve, they embody, quietly, powerfully, authentically. The false path promises comfort. The true path delivers transformation. And transformation is not a brand. It's a process, one that never ends. So don't chase perfection. Don't worship aesthetics. Follow what feels real. Follow what humbles you. Follow what breaks you open and brings you back to yourself. That's where the light lives. Not in the image, but in the integration. Waking up is only the beginning. Seeing the illusion, spotting the trap, feeling the cracks in the facade of reality. These are the first signs that your soul is stirring. But once you see through the lie, the question becomes, what now? How do you live differently in a world that still worships the illusion? How do you break free from a system that rewards numbness and punishes truth? The answer isn't to escape, it's to realign. Not with the world, but with Source, with the original frequency you came from before the noise of this realm made you forget. Breaking free doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments. The moment you pause instead of react. The moment you choose silence over distraction. The moment you say no, not because you're angry, but because it no longer feels aligned. These moments build power. They shift your frequency. They rewire your connection to Source. And slowly, you stop living as a product of programming and begin living as a sovereign soul. You don't need to move to the mountains or abandon your life to remember who you are. The remembering happens right where you are, at work, in relationships, in daily routines. But it begins with presence, with being awake inside your own story. The more present you become, the more you notice the subtle ways you give your power away. Through your words, through your attention, through your thoughts. Every moment you choose awareness, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Reconnecting to Source isn't about adopting more beliefs. It's about shedding the ones that were never yours. It's about feeling rather than thinking. Trusting your intuition even when it doesn't make logical sense. Letting go of identities that feel heavy. Choosing people, spaces, and ideas that bring you back to your center. It's less about adding more and more about clearing the noise so you can hear the truth that's always been whispering underneath. Energy hygiene is part of this process. The food you eat, the content you consume, the people you surround yourself with, the energy you allow into your field either aligns you or scatters you. And alignment isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. If something drains you, it's a message. If something inspires you, it's a breadcrumb. Follow that trail. Your soul left clues everywhere. Rituals help, but not because they're magical. They help because they anchor your awareness. Lighting a candle, sitting in silence, speaking to the universe out loud. These small acts remind your soul that you're listening, that you're willing to co-create, that you remember the way home. You're not just here to wake up for yourself. When you live from soul, you become a frequency holder. Your presence disrupts patterns. Your clarity clears space. You don't have to preach or prove anything. Just being aligned becomes an act of quiet revolution. People feel it, even if they can't explain it. And in a world addicted to confusion, clarity is magnetic. The path back to source is not a ladder you climb, it's a spiral inward. Each time you turn inward, each time you remember who you are, you get closer. Not to something outside you, but to the part of you that never left, that still sits in the center of all things, untouched by time or trauma. That part of you is not lost. It's just been waiting for you to turn around and remember. Real freedom isn't found in what you run from, but in what you return to. And you return by living in truth, in alignment, in awareness. That's what real rebellion looks like. That's what it means to rise, not above others, but into yourself. The self that has always been and will always be. Somewhere along the way, you were made to believe that you had to find yourself, that you had to go out and search for meaning, chase purpose, earn your worth, and prove your place in this world. But the deeper truth is, you were never lost. You were never broken. You were never behind. You were simply asleep, dreaming inside a system that benefits from your forgetfulness, hoping one day you'd hear the quiet knock of your soul and finally decide to wake up. The soul doesn't need to be fixed. It doesn't need to be saved. It only needs to be remembered. All that you seek, peace, clarity, connection, power, it's already inside you, waiting patiently beneath the noise of conditioning and the roles you've played for so long. The voice of your soul has always been there, whispering through your intuition, pulling you towards synchronicities, nudging you with moments of stillness. And every time you ignored it, every time you doubted it, it didn't get angry, it just waited. You were never here to follow the script. You were here to remember your own, the one you wrote before arriving, the one that isn't based on fear, scarcity, or shame, the one that speaks in symbols, feelings, and knowing. That's the path home, not outward, but inward, not upward, but deeper. It's in the moments when you feel most real, most aligned, most free. That's your soul saying, yes, this is it. This is who we are. So if you've wandered, if you felt like you've strayed too far, know this. You can't be too far from what lives inside you. You don't need to become more spiritual, more disciplined, more perfect. You just need to slow down, strip away the noise, and listen. The remembering is already happening. That's why you're here. That's why this message found you. Because your soul is waking up, and the world is shifting, and you are a part of something ancient and powerful unfolding right now. You are not alone. Millions are waking up beside you, some quietly, in the middle of the night, some through pain, some through curiosity, all following a trail of forgotten truths buried in their DNA, in their dreams, in the pull they can't explain. Together, we are undoing generations of forgetting. We are remembering not just who we are, but what we came here to do, not to fit in, but to realign this world with truth, to bring light not by force but by frequency. There will be days when you slip back into sleep. That's okay. The remembering is a spiral, not a straight line. Each loop brings you closer. Each moment of awareness deepens your connection. You don't need to rush. The soul doesn't operate on urgency. It knows that what is meant will always find you when you're ready, not when you're pressured. And you're ready now. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. This isn't the end of your journey. It's the return to it. A return to sovereignty, to clarity, to presence. A return to the place within you that holds no fear and no doubt. The place where the soul leads, not the world. Where truth whispers louder than noise. Where you stop seeking and start embodying. That's when everything changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes easy, but because you begin to move through it as who you truly are. So walk your path with presence. Let your soul speak louder than your fear. Honor what feels true, even when it's hard. And above all, trust that every step forward is a step inward, a step home. If you haven't joined the Insights Academy newsletter yet, now is the moment. There are things we can't say here, and they're waiting for you on the other side. And yes, you'll also receive the Kybalion as a free digital download, an ancient text, that will only deepen what you've already begun to remember. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."